Hi, this is Ushio and welcome back to Echo. In the last episode, we're still stuck underground. We don't know how we got here or who did it to us. And we have been attacked by like a strange black mist monster or something, like smoke monster. It was kind of weird. And Jenna has joined us. So our current group of people is Chase, Cole, Raven, and yeah, Jenna's joined us. So there's now four of us stuck down here. And we're going to try and see what we can do next. We all stand in front of the wooden door in a half circle, none of us wanting to open it. So this is all to clear James's name. It seems that way. But why go through all of the trouble? I rest on my good foot of the carpeted floor while I lean on Cole's back, wanting to give him some relief from carrying me all the time. Probably because of the smoke monster thing. It's trying to stop him. Maybe it's making all of these obstacles? Jenna had taken her whole description of what had happened in the dining room pretty well. She listened silently while I'd explained what had happened so far. So I guess if we can get his story straight, maybe get it out to the town about what really happened, we might be able to get out of here. Jenna eyes the door. You think that there's maybe a reason why this monster doesn't want James to get this information out? We're quiet for a moment. Well, we don't have much else to go on. Again, there's a long pause as we all contemplate what the hell might be behind the door. That pause is broken by a certain husky, though, as his white hand suddenly reaches out to grasp the handle. Maybe we've already done what needs to be done. I'll bet this gets us home. Raven? The heavy door pulls open slowly with an unearthly squeal. For a brief moment that I'm conscious, I see a black square in front of me that grows in size until it takes up my entire vision. The muscles in my back and neck seize up, and my teeth clench together as my head jerks back. And then I'm falling. There's a rhythmic throbbing in my head, but it's hard to decide if it's coming from inside my head or outside. The next sense to come back to me is touch. I feel a cold, hard surface under my back. Probably wood, judging by the way my claws sink into it. I shift around a little, but I don't feel like getting up just yet. The smell is musty and old. I'm reminded of my grandpa's woodshed, a place I'd often go when I played hide and seek. The drumming sound continues, and the rhythm makes me think that it's definitely coming from outside my body. It sounds tribal, in a way. Where am I? On the edges of my memory are troubling images of endless halls and rooms, and the smell of decay and a noose. But I feel like if I block it out and just go back to sleep, I can erase all of it. I almost succeed, and then something brings me right out of my reverie. Cole? Chase? I grimace, the voice reminded me of something dark and cloudy. Help! The much louder yelp that follows has me rolling to my side, cracking my eyes open blearily. Where are we now? I'm in the dark room, very dark, the only source of light coming from what looks like a candle on a bedside table. A large bed sits next to it. I'm laying near the foot of the bed, and opposite me I can barely make out a wall next to which is a wooden box. Help! Raven's plaintive moan forces me to my feet, my joints cracking uncomfortably. As I drag my right foot up to stand under me, a blinding pain flashes up my leg, sending bright white across my vision. I let out a muffled scream of pain behind my clenched teeth, closing my eyes as I wait for it to subside. Memories are starting to flow back to me. There's a doorway in front of me, and I start to make my way toward it, hopping slowly on my left foot, holding the right off the ground. I come into a small hallway, one that branches to my left into a corridor of darkness. Right in front of me, however, is a set of stairs. Light glows at the bottom, and I'm pretty sure that's where Raven's voice is coming from. In fact, I'm pretty sure I can hear the other voices coming from there as well. I look down at my ankle, wincing as I see that it's gotten even bigger, more than twice its original size. I'm starting to think that it's more than a sprain. As I make my way down the stairs, cringing with every light hop, my stomach starts to sink. I remember now, the weird mansion that we were just in, the doors and hallways and the smoke monster, and the door we just went through. Whatever's happening to us isn't over just yet. When I reach the bottom of the stairs, I find Jenna and Cole standing around a tall brown wardrobe. As I stand there breathing heavily, Cole turns to see me. Chase! He immediately rushes to my side, his hooves clopping loudly against the wooden floor. I think he's simply coming over to support me, but he wraps me up in a hug. God, I keep worrying that one of us is going to disappear. I'm glad you're here. Yeah, I'm fine. I was upstairs in the bedroom, I think. The anxiety I'm feeling over the whole situation goes away a little, absorbed by the soft warmth of Cole's body. Over Cole's shoulder, I could see Jenna watching us, her eyes narrowed, expression dark. I'm about to ask her what's wrong, when I hear a loud bang from inside the wardrobe. Guys, you still there? I think something touched me. Jenna turns back to the wardrobe, silent for a moment, and then bends down to look at something. Guys? I hear a metallic clink, then Jenna jumps back as one of the doors swings open, and a black and white blur falls out like a rock. Raven faceplants neatly onto the wooden floor. He stays there for a moment, moaning into the planks, before Jenna bends over to help him up. Are you okay? Yeah, I just felt like something grabbed me. I looked back at the wardrobe to find a very bare and empty wooden compartment. I'm inclined to believe him, though, after everything that's happened. Where are we? It's a good question, and now, with the excitement over, I take the opportunity to look around as well. Everything is wooden, the walls, floor, ceiling. There's a large rug on the floor, covered in colourful patterns and shapes. It reminds me of the art projects we do in elementary school when learning about the natives. There's a big stone fireplace and 2 rug-covered chairs in front of it. Jenna gingerly shuts the wardrobe. So, log cabin. Does everyone remember where we were before? Yeah, the mansion place? So we're still stuck in this dimension thingy? I sigh, rubbing my face with one hand, while I lean against Cole with the other. I'd long ago given up on trying to figure out exactly what the hell's going on. Like Carl said earlier, we just have to keep moving and hope we get out of here. What's that sound? The drumming that I had thought was coming from within my head has started up again. Drums? The husky moves toward the wall, which consists of several logs stacked horizontally on top of each other. Can't see anything. The cracks are filled with stuff. I look around again, this time more carefully. Right in front of me there's a large log door, not unlike the one we initially came through. On my left side, separated by the stairs, is what looks like the kitchen side of the room. In it there's a small table with 2 chairs on either side. There's also a big black wood-burning stove next to a few shelves which are full of pots and pans. Various tools and furniture clutter up the rooms. And there's a window. I point it out to Cole. Look, let's try and see out through there. Cole pulls me into the familiar position on his back before clopping over to the window. The sound's a bit louder, with my added weight. Jenna and Raven follow behind. There's a ledge next to the window, thankfully, and Cole lets me sit on it. I turn to look out the window, while the others crowd around me, resting their hands on the wooden bench. The first thing I notice is a flickering light in the distance, about 100 yards away. It casts out across the ground around it shadows from rocks and bushes dancing about with the movement of the illumination. It's definitely a fire, a large one, probably a bonfire. The blackness around the fire is unnatural though, just like what I saw through the windows in the mansion. It's inky and thick, and has an oppressive air of almost being alive. No other light comes from what I presume to be the sky, that fire being the only signal that anything exists outside the cabin. It's a fire. Raven says redundantly. The drumming, it's coming from it. Carl reaches out, but his hand looks to immediately press against something. I reach out too, and feel a soft flat surface where a pane of glass might be set up, but it's clear there's nothing visible there. Observe, accept, move on. Hey look. I look up in time to see something dark flash across the fire. It disappears into the darkness to the right of the flame though. What was that? Maybe it was a tumbleweed or something? No, it was jumping, whatever it was. I feel a prickling on my neck, and now I'm not really into the idea of just staring out into the darkness. But then it happens again, and I see what Jenna's saying. The dark shape starts at the left side of the fire before passing in front of it. I get a brief impression of a tail and ears, legs and arms pumping as if jogging in place. It moves past the flames, then disappears into the darkness again. Something's out there. We continue to watch, but the drumbeat dies down, and after about a minute, it's clear nothing's moving around out there anymore. What was that? Well, Carl glances at Jenna. The drumbeat sounds kind of native, don't you think? He's clearly waiting for Jenna to confirm. Maybe. There's an awkward silence before Carl coughs. Well, let's think. We weren't able to get out of the mansion until we found the letter, right? He looks at me. Yeah. I respond automatically. Well, if that's the case, then maybe we have to find something in here, right? I guess it would make sense. But what are we supposed to find? Another letter? Yeah, didn't someone tell you about finding something? That it would open the door? Yeah, and I think it makes sense that whoever set this up would do it the same way, right? I sigh and stop staring at the window, my back sore from the twisting motion. I sit straight up on the bench and look back into the cabin. Well, if we're supposed to find another letter, there's a bunch of places to hide it. Maybe we should try this door first? Jenna walks over to the door and looks it up and down before reaching out to slide back a rusty bolt. To my surprise, it moves with only a little resistance. Are we sure we just want to go out there? I mean, we don't know who that way is running around. Jenna hesitates, then heaves back on the door, but it doesn't budge, not even an inch. Jenna sighs. Raven bounds up next to Jenna before enthusiastically yanking back on the handle as well. Again, the door holds fast. Oh, of course. Jenna stares at the door a moment before turning to us. Let's take a look around upstairs. If we're supposed to find something, then we should start from top to bottom. Agreed. Cole bends down to pick me up, but I rest a paw on his shoulder. Wait, I don't want you to have to drag me everywhere, let alone up and down the stairs. He stops mid-stoop, his face level with mine as he looks at me. Are you sure? I don't really want to leave you alone down here? As I look back at him, I can't help but note the differences that I noticed earlier. His face has harder lines, his fur duller, eyes somehow deeper, wiser. You okay? I break out of my trance and blink. Yeah. I'll just stay down here and look around where I can. Jenna and Raven are already making their way up the stairs, Raven going on about how his family used to have their own log cabin. Okay, but shout if you need something. I smile. At least I feel some parts of Cole are still familiar. After the ram heads up the stairs, I lean back on my little bench, letting my head tilt back as I close my eyes. Even in this new environment, everything is still feeling surreal. I've come to welcome the feeling though. It's a nice little barrier to everything that's happening right now. In some ways, I can still pretend that this is a dream. Hell, even now I'm thinking that it's a dream, that I'm somehow stuck in one of my paralyses. Maybe I'm in the hospital right now, and they're trying to figure out how to pull me out of it. That thought has me feeling like I'm being watched, and the fur prickles around my neck. I guess it would be kind of awkward if all those doctors are watching me right now. Maybe Carl and Jenna are there too, Leo, Flynn, TJ. The feeling gets stronger, so I turn back around to look out the window. It's still silent, and the lonely little flame in the distance continues to flicker around the rocks and sagebrush. It makes me wonder how endless this world is. If we're in some kind of ghost dimension being manipulated by what are basically ghost gods, then will this whole ordeal be never ending? The thought twists my stomach, so I stop thinking about it. I turn back around and force my eyes to start scanning the kitchen from top to bottom, looking for something, anything that might stand out. I assume I'm looking for a letter? But again, if the rules are limitless in this world, then there's no telling what it might be that we're supposed to find next. I think about vocally asking James, or whoever the hell it is, for some help. Maybe some kind of hint at least, but there's no way I'm going to do that without the others with me. I'm thinking about pushing off the bench and start limping around the kitchen when a small scratching sound catches my attention. I hold still and lean back, tilting my ear toward the sound. It's muffled and a bit distant, but it's coming from directly to my left. Is it happening on the outside of the cabin? My fur prickles, and I think about calling Cole. I can hear the three of them stomping around, talking to each other in muffled voices from upstairs. I turn around again, this time a little more tentatively. The dancing bonfire continues to glow quietly, no other movement aside from the shadows. This time a rustling sound comes from that same spot, and I instinctively turn my eyes in its direction. Cole! I raise my voice only a little bit, but their conversation carries on upstairs, as if I hadn't said anything. I look up at the ceiling and back at the window. The rustling sound continues, this time in earnest, as if something's twisting around in the brush. It's coming from just out of view of the window, right at the base of the house. I hold my breath and lean forward, stretching my neck up to get a better angle and peer down into the darkness. It's really too dark to see much, or at least that's what I was thinking. Almost as if it has its own glow, a bright white face stares back at me from the blackness. My mind blanks and my body seizes up. And just like that, I'm in a paralysis, forced to stare down at the white face and black eyes. It's as if the thing is holding me with its gaze, but as it does, its features become more definable. I see tall ears, a long pointy muzzle, a band of some type across the thing's forehead. Stop it. Something says it very deliberately through their teeth right in my ear. At the same time, the face flickers and fuzzes, like a TV picture with bad reception. The head twitches and shifts, then the muzzle opens, and the cackle that comes forth is all at once terrifying and familiar, and at that moment I'm released. My vocal cords start working at the same time, and I let out a scream as I fall backwards. I land on the wooden floor with a loud thud that shakes the pots and pans on the shelves. The room spins, and I feel like I'm coming right out of a dream, like I've been sleeping for ages. The next thing I know is that I'm surrounded by the three faces of my friends all looking down at me. Carl grabs me under the arms and pulls me into a sitting position, his face worried, but there's something else too. Anger. What happened? I'm startled by his abruptness, and I stammer through an answer. Is the face out the window? What did it say? Carl, what are you doing? Raven reproaches the ram gently, his ears falling. Carl glances at the husky, then at Jenna, who's been silent so far, and then back at me, slowly letting go. Sorry, I was just worried about you. What did you see? Did it say anything? It takes me a moment to find my voice. No, didn't say anything. Just laughed. What did it look like? A fox, maybe? Had a band over his head? Carl's eyes narrow. Hey, I found something. We all look up at Raven as he holds up a white piece of paper. What's that? Carl stands up, staring hard at the paper in Raven's hand. I don't know, looks like a photocopy of a newspaper. Let's see. Raven turns toward the candle sitting on the desk. Jenna stands behind him. Meseta boy missing after... Whoa. Raven flinches back as the paper catches fire, illuminating the entire cabin room. As shadows dance along the log walls. The paper, which Raven had dropped, flutters to the floor, a tongue of angry flame eating it up completely before it hits the floor. We all stare at the smouldering flake of ash on the ground. Raven, are you kidding me? What? I wasn't even that close to the candle. That might have been what we needed. But, Raven stares at his hands, looking forlornly between them and the candle, which seems to flicker innocently on the table. I rest my face in my hands. Well, what do we do now? He wasn't near the candle. I pull my head out of my hands, not because of what Jenna said, but because of the way she said it. What? I've got a side angle here. You're at least 2 feet away. There's a brief silence. Jenna, what are you talking about? I don't know, Carl. What am I talking about? Jenna turns to the ram, eyes narrowed, teeth just slightly bared. I look at Carl. He's frowning, a concerned look on his face. Jenna, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm saying there's no way that candle burned that paper. Carl's concerned expression deepens, but there's also a hint of condescension there. What else could it have been then, Jenna? This time the silence is heavy. I'm baffled by the interactions they've been having so far, and judging by the look on Raven's face, so's he. Hey guys, I'm sorry I burned it, but maybe we can figure something out from the title, Meseta boy missing? I look at Jenna. Oh, Meseta, isn't that your tribe or Yeah. I feel my face flush, as I wonder if I'm being insensitive, like I think she knows everyone from the tribe. But what does that mean? A lot of people go missing out here. Well, it would have something to do with James, right? How do we know that? I look at Cole. Are you okay, man? You've been acting really weird ever since we got here. I think we're all acting a little different after getting here, don't you think? Cole glances at Jenna. Are we fighting again? Staring at the ash on the ground, something I should have realised earlier suddenly hits me. Wait a minute, that newspaper kinda looked like something that came out of the crawl space tubs. What do you mean? I was looking through some artifacts that Cole's family saved from way back when, for that project I was doing. It seems like years ago at this point. I snapped my fingers, and some of the stuff was missing from it, like pages ripped from Cole's mum's notes that had photocopies of old newspapers. So that was a clipping from the notes? Maybe, I don't know, but John was native, so maybe it has to do with him. I think back to the small fox I saw through the window, the band across his forehead. Was that John? So the ghost just ripped out the pages to show you this nightmare world. Why didn't he just point them out to you in the real world? I don't really have an answer for that. Then we wouldn't have to go through this shit right now? Ghost rules. Raven shrugs. And what if that was our key out of here? Well, they can't just leave us here, right? We don't know anything about where we are or what these things are capable of. So what now? We just sit and wait around for something else to happen? Carl suddenly sighs. Well, I'm gonna go look around some more. You guys do whatever you want. Again, I'm taken aback by Cole's demeanour. I've never seen him act like this before. It's like he's a different person. Without another word, he turns on his hoof and walks away. While everyone got a chip on their shoulder, over the next several hours we searched the cabin from top to bottom. I hobble around the ground floor, careful not to look out the window, even when the drumming starts up again at a few points. I check all of the shelves under the chairs and tables, in the stove, in the pantry, between the cracks in the floor and the walls, and we don't find anything. At some point I almost topple over from dozing off, and that's when we call off the search. There's some discussion as to where we should sleep, if we should do it in shifts. Jenna suggests she stay downstairs while the rest of us sleep, just in case something else happens. Carl suggests that I sleep on the bed upstairs because of my leg, and I have to agree with him. Raven stays downstairs with Jenna, making himself comfortable in one of the chairs. As Carl hobbles up the stairs with me on his back, Jenna watches us the whole way. Jenna is so suspicious of Cole right now. There's some kind of major beef going on. I sit on the bed, watching as Cole moves about the room, looking behind shelves and under the bed. Cole, I hate to ask again, but are you okay? What? He looks back at me. Yeah, I'm fine. I just want to make sure everything's safe for you. Thanks, it's just that you seem different, I guess. Cole looks at the ceiling, seemingly thinking. It's difficult to make him out in the darkness. Just like when he had a sheet over his head, I get the weird feeling that who I'm talking to might not be Cole. I think it's just that this has made me grow up. I realise now how useless I've been. This is sort of an opportunity for me to actually do something and help people, you know? Yeah. It sounds nice, but I can't get rid of that nagging feeling that something's off. It's in the way he talks, the way he moves, right down to his facial expressions. I swing my legs gingerly onto the bed and lay back. Cole comes over to sit on the other side. You gonna sleep here too? Yeah, you need me to get around, so I'm gonna be by your side as much as possible. Okay, thanks. As we lay awkwardly on our backs for a moment, Cole suddenly turns on his side and pulls me into his chest. I'm surprised and turn instinctively so that he's spooning me. I guess it makes sense after our semi-confession back in the mansion. He nuzzles my neck, but again, the action is weirdly unnatural. Even with his big warm body next to mine, it takes me a long time to fall asleep. Or have a good night rest if we can, no more nightmares. I open my eyes and blearily I can make out the dark cabin room. My heart sinks again at realising where I'm at, but it's more subdued this time. I guess I'm getting used to my new life. My mouth is dry, very dry, and I feel like I need to find water or I'm not going back to sleep. I sit up. Cole's moved back to his side of the bed, at this point, lying out on his back snoring. Quietly, I get out of the bed, wincing at how creaky the floorboards are. I make my way down the stairs, eyes adjusted to the point where I can barely make out the ledges. When I reach the ground level, I see that Raven is splayed out on the carpet snoring as well. I shake my head before moving to the kitchen. Jenna isn't there, and I wonder where she might be at. Was she in another room upstairs? Maybe I just missed her when I was distracted by Raven. Looking around, I see a small cup sitting on the table. I'm almost positive it hasn't been there before, but maybe Raven or Jenna set it there. Walking over to it, I'm relieved to see that it's filled with what looks like water. I pick it up and sniff at it, not really getting a hint of anything. No, get fresh, go get fresh. Tentatively, I take a sip, and immediately spit it out. It's salty, putrid, tastes like... I jump, and some kind of liquid splashes to the floor. Gingerly I sit down the cup, looking into the opposite room. Everything is still in the other room. I can't even hear Raven snoring anymore. This time I see the wardrobe move, the door specifically. I stare wide-eyed. Everything falls still again, but I don't dare move. Jenna? I whisper loudly. It wouldn't make any sense why she'd be in there, but who else could it be? Ghosts, of course. I'm about to take a step forward, toward the stairs maybe, or at least to wake Raven up, but that's when the small door cracks open. I freeze, all of the fur on my body standing up. James. Words die on my tongue as something long and black slides out from behind the door. It dips down toward the ground, and only then does it vaguely take the shape of a foot. Another long black tendril follows, slightly ahead of the first one. When it touches the ground, It takes the shape of a hand, resting flat on the wooden floor. I choke and start to try to back away, but then the door explodes open and I'm just barely able to make out a galloping black shape before it engulfs me. I collapse back onto the ground, twisting, trying to scream, but the thing is completely covering and smothering me. I choke and gag, feeling like I'm being suffocated, my arms pinned to my sides, my legs rigid. As I try to yank away from the thing, it feels like something is freed from my mouth and I'm able to scream, "Help! Get it off me! Help!" Chase! The surface underneath me becomes soft, the thing on top of me warm. Through bleary eyes, I look up at Cole, just able to make out the curve of his horns. Cole? I hear movement at the doorway, and I glance in that direction to find Jenna standing there, hackles raised, teeth bared. Jenna? Before I know exactly what's going on, Jenna sprints across the room and jumps onto the bed. Cole doesn't even have time to turn around before she snatches him up by the horns and yanks his head back violently. The ram lets out a choking sound as he's dragged back and thrown to the floor. Jenna jumps off the bed after him. From the sounds of it, she lands on him. What follows is a series of thuds and smacks. Weakly, I pull myself to the foot of the bed, still completely disoriented. I knew it, you motherfucking piece of shit. What I see is Jenna sitting on Cole's back, swinging her fist into his head while the ram tries to cover up. You haven't changed at all. Jenna, stop. I roll off the bed, confused as to why I'm so weak. Pain shoots up my leg again, but this time I barely notice it. There's something around Jenna, something big and black like a shadow, making her look much bigger than she actually is. Her fists swung and hit Cole with a force I didn't think she was capable of. Then she grabs Cole by the horns again and yanks back before slamming his face back to the floor. Jenna! I lunge forward, trying to put myself between the two of them. Underneath me, Cole has gone limp. Just like Jenna, there's something black and shadowy around him as well, but it's fading, moving away. Jenna's still trying to get at Cole, reaching around me and snarling in my ear, a sound that makes my fur stand on end. And then she's gone. I look to my left and see Jenna being drawn back by Raven, his eyes wide with shock. What are you doing? Jenna struggles in the husky's grasp. I saw him. He was trying to fuck the otter. The otter? Jenna, stop. He was helping me. Raven continues to try and pull Jenna toward the door, but she continues to struggle. I was having a nightmare. Jenna's struggling, loses some of its vigour, but she continues to snarl in Cole's direction. Raven, please get her out of here. The shadow around Jenna seems to shrink, and her face shows doubt as she stares at the crumpled form of Cole. After a moment, she seems to let her husky lead her from the room, and I hear soothing tones from Raven as he leads her down the stairs. I turn back to Cole, who has his arms around his head, face still buried in the ground. After a while, I see his shoulders heaving with sobs. Gently, I pull one of his arms back, and he looks up at me. This time, I recognise his face. What on earth happened there? It was crazy. I sit next to Cole on the bed, mopping up his face with his blooded buttoned-up shirt. He sits there silently, looking at his hands while I work. At least nothing's broken. Dude, what happened? I'm not sure if he's talking about what happened with Jenna, or just everything. I've been asking the same question since we got here. He looks at his hands again. I felt different. I sit back and look him over, satisfied with having cleaned up most of his face. You were acting different too. I felt like I knew everything. I knew what I was doing. You were acting really confident. I agree, and set his bloody shirt off to the side. When I look back at him, he seems so sad and beaten down that I have to hug him. Dude, you gonna make me start crying again? His voice cracks, but he hugs back anyway. I'm just glad you're back. I felt like I was talking to a stranger. Cole leans against me and sighs. I don't know if I'm glad though. It's like I just came down from a huge high. I rub his shoulder for a while before I venture forward with my guess. Was it James? I don't know. Maybe. Cole looks at his hands again, like he's questioning if they're even his. I just felt like I knew what I wanted, and when things didn't go the way I thought they would, I'd get really pissed. He's silent for a while, I imagine contemplating what he'd just gone through. Jenna isn't really acting like herself either. Cole looks up at that. Yeah, I felt like whatever was in me, whatever it is, really hates what Jenna's doing for some reason. Cole looks around at the room, scanning it with his dark green eyes. I feel like all of this is some kind of mental fight between James and whatever else is fighting against him. He looks back down at his hands. And that's why we have to do all of this. He falls back into silence and I don't ask any more questions, wanting to let him rest a bit. There's one nagging thought that comes to my mind though. This is kinda stupid, but what happened back in the mansion, you know, the thing between us? He looks up at me and I feel my face flush looking away. I guess I'm wondering if any of that was real. I mean, if it was really you feeling that way. Carl doesn't say anything, so I'm forced to look up at him, and when I do, he has a sad sort of smile on his face. Dude, I think that was the only part of me that was real. Despite where we are, despite everything that's happening, that somehow makes me incredibly happy. Happy enough to lean forward and kiss him. He kisses back, and while it's barely more than a peck, it has my entire body feeling warm. He puts his own arm around me after I pull back and I rest my head on his shoulder. I feel like it's going to try and come back though. I look at him. What, James? Whatever it is, I can already feel it, like it's on the edge of my mind. Do you think you can fight it? Carl sighs and looks at me. Should I? What do you mean? I mean, it made me feel amazing, like I could do anything. Maybe we need that. I frown. I don't know. Not only that, but I felt like I knew what to do. It might save us. He stares back into my eyes. I know it's not really me, but it'll probably only be for the time that we're here. I look away thinking, then I'll be back to my old self. He squeezes my shoulder. But it's important to me what you think. We're in this together. Okay, we have got to make a decision, and I think I'm going to be a tease. I think we're going to do this in the next episode. This is Usho signing off, and hopefully I will see you next time.